What up? This is Yinka Diz.
Peace, this is Outlaw.
And listen to the 80s Babies podcast.
And on today's episode, we have a Put You Up for the sophomore album of Kurupt, The Streetz Iz A Mutha, released November 16th, 1999.
Yeah.
And I feel like, obviously we haven't done a West Coast album in a while, have we?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. And Kurupt is one of your favorite West Coast artists. One of your favorite artists, period,
coming
right?
up. One of my favorite rappers coming up.
One of your favorite rappers, right?
Yeah.
And so, I feel like this is actually, we almost recorded this like a few years ago. I'm not sure if you remember.
Maybe.
Yeah, you had suggested, we should do a Put You Up for Kurupt's Streetz A Mutha.
Yeah.
So why are we doing a Put You Up for this today?
I don't know. So you said you want to do another West Coast album.
I did, yes.
We've talked about this or teased this. I think, to me, this is Kurupt's solo crown jewel album. Like, This is probably like his best as a soloist. And additionally, we did probably his worst, which was Corruption. And so I feel like this is a great opportunity, at least in your mind, because it's a Put You Up, to kind of redeem Kurupt as a soloist, because Corruption was not the best offer.
Nah, that was not good at all. But you're correct. Kurupt is redeemed.
Hey.
This album is really good.
Okay.
It's really, really good. Now, I will concede that this is not necessarily like my kind of album.
Okay.
But I'm also like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I recognize, like, if I was in LA in 1999, like, did Chronic 2001, did Dr. Dre's 2001 come out the same day?
So I was going to talk about that later, but yeah, they dropped the exact same day.
Okay. And, look, if we're going to spoil the where were you? Where was I in 1999 around this time? Black Death, Most Death's Black on Both Sides is released, so I'm still vibing out to that, obviously. But, I bought 2001.
Right.
That album was incredible. I didn't really care about, Dr. Dre and Eminem. I didn't give a shit about that. But, like, those beats and those songs, like Still DRE and, Explosive, like, that shit was crazy.
Right.
And that's where I was. I had no idea that this was an album. I think the only song that I recognized was Girls All Pause, and that was not a song that I really vibed with.
Right.
Not then or now, to be honest. But Kurupt coming out with an album in 1999 went over my head.
Right. Completely understandable. And to tease my low light, my low light is poor planning. Because I think you're not the only person, right? Like, this album was overshadowed. Like, really one of the greatest hip hop albums of all time, and maybe one of the greatest albums of all time, is 2001.
Yeah.
And it was released the same day. Like, bro, don't release your album. It doesn't matter who you are. Don't release your album on the same day as an album coming out from the biggest artist ever. It's just not a good idea. And
so are we putting this more on Kurupt, or are we putting this more on Dre?
I would put this on Kurupt. Kurupt and Kurupt's people, right? Like, y'all, Ho's a Housewife is on here. So you knew he was coming out around the same time. Y'all talked about your deadlines. Yeah. Like, y'all knew what this was. So hold your shit if you have to, or drop it early. Like, don't drop on the same day as 2001. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think that we'll get into this because I actually had some thoughts from Rodney, one of our listeners.
Okay.
Which I'll share. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is an album. 2001 was that's like an American album. This feels like very much like a West Coast LA album.
Okay.
And I think that if they're going to be released on the same day, it's like, maybe if Kurupt was more of a national artist, maybe it would not have mattered. Okay. But I mean, like, in this context, it's like, it matters. And the thing is like, you're on 2001 at least one time, or possibly he's on a few times, right? Yeah. You can take, the buzz from that, and then you can release this even a month later.
Right, a month later, and this hits nationally.
Yeah. So where were you when this came out? We already did mine.
Yeah, I was in Virginia. I think I said on the Exhibit episode, but I remember buying this album and Exhibit's 40 Days and 40 Nights the same day. I mean, I was in Virginia. 2001 was everywhere, and it was everything. That was all anybody was talking about. Yeah. I was a big Kurupt fan. I talked about when bringing Corruption to Virginia, and that being an album that I listened to almost like as an identity album. So this particular album, I probably bought it like the day it dropped or around the time that it dropped.
Okay.
And the biggest kind of memory that I have around this is the song "Welcome Home."
Okay.
So
I remember you've mentioned this song before.
Yeah, like I was even maybe even now, right? But I was very homesick, like when I moved to the East Coast, and so I miss Cali a lot, and like Welcome Home reminded me of home, and so I feel like it became this song that I would never listen to it unless I was on a flight. When they do the call signs, when I'm coming into LAX, and it's like, everybody fasten your seatbelts, we're about to go, whatever. This would be the song that I would listen to.
Was that on purpose, like out of principle, or you just didn't like? You only like the song in that context?
No, it was out of principle. It was just like, it would just give me that feeling of nostalgia and excitement when I was getting ready to land back in California. So
Welcome Home is not one of my highlights, but the entire time I'm listening to it, I'm like, I know Yinka loves this song. I could just tell he loves this song.
Yeah, love it.
Definitely a Yinka joint. Should we do some critical reception?
Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm not one to talk about the critical reception just because I don't know anybody who listened to this album at the time. I really don't. Yeah. And this is not something that we were checking for. Look, the entire time, this is album's out. The only thing we're listening to is 2001, and that's it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right? And this is just black folks. This is everybody is listening to 2001.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's crazy.
For sure.
So I don't have any critical reception. So
it seems like the reviews were fairly middling. And by middling, I mean like B's, 3 out of 4 stars, maybe 4 out of 5 stars. Like it seemed like, mostly safe scores. I think we have one from Vibe here that says Kurupt destroys lesser lyricists while dipping and sliding through G-funk beats. Yeah. All Music says unspectacular but solid. This was part of the late 1999 West Coast revival. Cool.
I think that Source gave this 4 mics, I think.
Okay.
Which actually I think is pretty good. I think that I would be very comfortable giving this a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
I think with a few tweaks, maybe even a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I do think that I'm not a person who's from LA, and there's some things about this album that like don't really sit well with me. Okay. That have more to do with the sound than the content.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about the content. The content is fine. I'm not sure if I would. I think it'd be hard for me to give this a 5 out of 5 when something like 2001 is just so massive.
Yeah,
and it's an unfair comparison to compare these two albums. But nevertheless, like, what I like about like my albums that I give like, the coveted 5 stars to.
Right.
And this album doesn't have enough of that. But god damn it, this is a very, very, very good hip hop album.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
And I will say, to piggyback on what you're saying, right? Like, Dr. Dre is more of what we were talking about, right? Like he's a producer, rapper.
Yeah.
But surrounds himself with a great cast of characters to give us a narrative throughout 2001 that like you're bought in, the sound is amazing, and you're immersed in his world. I think we spoke on the Corruption album probably too much about, kind of Kurupt's weaknesses as a main character.
Yeah.
And I feel like on this album, he does a really good job of hiding his weaknesses and maybe amplifying some of his strengths.
Yeah.
In a way that I think makes this album maybe even greater than the sum of its parts, right?
I think that's fair.
As an offering for Kurupt as a solo artist.
I think that's fair. So let me just give some of our listener feedback on this, our listener assessment, I guess, if you will, on this album.
Okay.
So this is from Rodney, and Rodney is one of our biggest Facebook contributors on the comments, and this dude always holds it down for any West Coast or South artist, right? Always. We love you, Rodney. So he sent me a whole bunch, but I'm just gonna snippet some parts here.
Okay.
But he says, despite it being a really, really good album, the content and timing of the Streetz does not help Kurupt stand out. You mentioned that.
Right.
I think most fans were just ready for good music, while this album kind of forces you to pick sides. It's referring to like
East Coast, West
music,
Coast?
yeah, and just like where America was.
Okay.
This is a very, very LA centric album.
That's true.
So he says, while I do have a strong preference for the West when it comes to rap, this album is for LA, not necessarily hip hop. For those familiar with Bloods and Crips Banging All Wax, Volume 1 and Volume 2. DJ Battlecat has a heavy hand in the productions. The Streetz is nothing new, right? So basically, I didn't read that right, but basically it's like, if you're familiar with that, this is nothing new for folks familiar with that. But for others, this album is Crip heavy, which is why I say the content overshadows the album. Although this album is Kurupt's second solo effort, it teases fans longing for the follow-up to DP's Dog Food. While
true.
Kurupt is a great lyricist, The Streetz shows how much him and Daz need each other.
Yes,
absolutely. The same can be said about Daz's solo debut album, Retaliation, Revenge, and Get Back, which was released the year prior.
98.
And to let's just get into the highlights. One of my biggest highlights is Daz Dillinger.
Yep,
right.
Gotta be.
And not just as a first of all, when we did the dog food episode, I said that one of my highlights was Daz Dillinger as a vocal contributor.
Yes.
And it's the same thing that goes here.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned before how Eric Sermon was probably like one of your most underrated producers. I actually think Daz Dillinger is.
Okay.
Not only that, Daz Dillinger might actually be one of the most underrated musicians, period.
Yeah.
The dude really, really understands music. He is not like a great lyrical talent. Yet nevertheless, I am captivated by everything he has to say, and god damn it, every single one of his vocal features on here is fucking amazing.
Completely agree.
Like, this is almost like a Dog Pound album.
Yeah, that's what I'm
almost.
saying. This is like the sequel to Dog Food.
It kind of feels that way, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so, I'm not sure if I would have been able to respect that fact listening to this album when we first started the podcast. But given all, the growth that I've had in terms of going back to listen to some of these projects that I probably would not have given a chance to at the time, understanding all that and now listening to this. And now I feel like, listening to you talk about where you were in LA is giving me a better idea what that felt like, right? And while me being on the East Coast connected with someone like Dre and Snoop, you're telling me how you connect with someone like DJ Quick, and even to certain extent like Kurupt. And now that I kind of had that context, I'm listening to this album and I'm like, yo, I get it, dude. I get it. I get it. And hearing Daz now within this context, it's yo, I'm this album does not work without Daz Dillinger.
It's funny. I noticed this morning, I was like, Daz raps like he's crip walking with words.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not about what he's saying. It's how he's saying it. And he just really, really understands music.
Yeah. So just, Daz he's so fun too.
Yeah.
He's so fun. And even though he's got a few beats on here, they're not the beats that he provides aren't my favorite.
Okay.
We'll get to that. But just understanding music. Cause I know that Daz had to be in the studio, and even on records that he's not producing, I imagine he's in there and kind of
for sure
help calling some shots a little bit. Maybe you have some. Do you know any details about that? Maybe
not a background story, but I can tell you 110% that I hear his musical vision throughout this album. Right, he's my number one highlight as well. Right, I said he's clearly more involved in the sound and the creative direction, and probably the visionary behind this.
Got you. My next highlight is Fred Wreck.
Yeah, right? Fred Wreck the Fire. What's up, Fred?
He has my favorite beats on this album.
Okay.
And Rodney agrees. He says, besides Dre, Fred Wreck is the one that brings the most out of Kurupt on this album.
Yeah.
I happen to agree.
I love Fred Wreck, and I love Fred Wreck and Kurupt together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And so my next highlight, aside from Fred Wreck and Daz Dillinger, is Kurupt. Even though this feels like a Dog Pound record, it's still very much Kurupt centric. Yeah. And I think that, when what he attempted to do on Corruption, while admirable, he was out of his depth doing that. But he delivers it here. Yeah. Doesn't do the 2 record thing. He's just look, I've got this psychosomatic, lyrical, erratic, whatever, right? He's got that aspect of it. Right. But he also very much has the DPG, the West Coast, LA, chillin', crip, fuck DMX. He has it all on there, right?
Yeah,
he's got it all in it, and it delivers.
Yeah.
And so for him to be able to deliver as the solo artist on the record, I had to give him props because on his debut, he didn't do that.
Right.
So those are my overarching highlights. What you got?
That's what's up. So I got Daz, just like you. I got Fred Wreck. Fred Wreck is a Palestinian cat.
Is that right?
Yeah, who is from Cali. He's one of the funkiest dudes ever. I love Fred Wreck. So shout out to Fred Wreck. He also has my favorite beat on the next Kurupt project.
Okay.
So I love the combination of Kurupt.
Is that the Galaxy Odyssey space thing?
Yeah, Space Boogie. Maybe one day we'll do that.
All right, cool.
Superfly, man. I talk about Superfly a lot. I love Superfly. To me, he's one of the most underrated producers and artists out of the West Coast. So Superfly as a producer, rapper, personality, I think he influenced the creative direction on this project as well. I could just hear him all over it. And I think maybe one day we might do Superfly as an album called That Whoop De Whoop. It's, if you're not from California, you probably never heard of it, but
let's do it then.
It's a dope.
That sounds like it's to put you up.
Yeah. So yeah. And then just the features. I feel like the features really brought it.
Yeah.
And they really created this whole environment. I don't know if this is the first time I heard them talk about DPGC, but all of the features in this kind of universe of them going from Dog Pound to Dog Pound Gangsters, which is, hey, this is just all the homies that hang around Dog Pound, to Dog Pound Gangster Crip, where they actually make their own Crip set of artists that are all Crips is kind of cool. Like,
I'm glad you explained that to me because I didn't know. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
I feel like this album was the album where like you started to hear them be like Dog Pound Gangsta Crip, Dog Pound Gangsta Crip on all their shit. So I like that. Like I like the whole idea of like, Marvel has their own universe and DC has their own like this is like the Dog Pound Gangster universe or whatever. Crooked Eye.
Yeah.
I had seen Crooked Eye's name a little bit here and there, but to me, for me personally, this was like the coming out party for Crooked Eye. He's on 2 tracks, they're back to back, and he's great on both of them. And this is what makes me a Crooked Eye fan. And then I start looking at all his freestyles and stuff like that. So shout out to Crooked Eye. And then lastly, artwork. I like the artwork. I don't know if you saw
I saw the cover.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen the booklet.
Yeah, and then the whole booklet and everything is similar. Like it's this Crip blue and gray. It's the grain. It's the fonts.
Yeah,
the fonts that are like
this, it is a good album cover for sure.
Spray painted fonts. He's got the most Crippy outfit you'll ever have in your whole life with the Dodger blue hat, the starter jacket, the blue chucks. Like there's literally no more. Like if you did not walk by somebody, if you walk by somebody like that that's dressed this way in LA, they have to be a gang member. There's no possible way that you are wearing this and you're not a gang member. So
makes sense.
So I love the artwork, man. It's just like it's articulating exactly what the music is going to be when you get there. So, did you want to go track for track or?
Well, we had to do overarching lowlights.
Okay. What are your overarching lowlights?
So first of all, I have 2. So first of all, this is tonally inconsistent. It's not. There are aspects of the album or pockets of the album that are kind of incohesive. Right? Yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's Kurupt giving us all a Kurupt. Sometimes I think it works. Sometimes it doesn't. I think ultimately, does it take away from the album? No. Like I still think this is a really, really good album. I genuinely do. But is it holding it back from me calling it like a masterpiece the way I like to call some of the things I like masterpiece? Yes, I think it does. Right? Yeah. So that's one of my lowlights. The other thing too is that some of the mixing is bad. At least I'm listening to this on Spotify. So I'm listening to what's essentially an MP3, giving it like 192.
But what song specifically? Like
the title track for sure. But even like songs like there's a lot of songs that just are not really mixed as well as I would like them to be. Right? Especially if I'm thinking about like 2001, the way that's mixed. I mean, right?
You can't compare anything to 2001.
Exactly. And like I said, they're unfair
that is
albums
a sonic
to compare.
Masterpiece.
Yes, exactly. And I just kind of wish that this had that. But it doesn't. But it's okay. Like it's cool. I do feel though like I need to concede that listening to this on headphones on Spotify is different than if I actually had the CD in the car.
I also think though that Battle Cat specifically, Daz as well a little bit, but there are certain artists that it seems like the aesthetic of their ear in terms of the way their shit is mixed, you don't like it. So like a good example is like We Can Freak It, like you said that was like a poor mix. And so I think some of the people that mix on his projects,
that might be fair.
You probably just don't like the sound that they're going for.
Yeah, maybe. Do you have any overarching lowlights?
Like I said, just poor planning, man. Don't release your album on the same day as 2001. Like you clearly included your Dr. Dre feature so that you could get more exposure. So you know how much exposure 2001 is going to have. So don't put your album on the same day.
I think there's too many tracks to do track for track. So we could just call out the highlights individually. Should I start?
Yeah.
Should you start?
Yeah, go for it.
So there's a lot of songs on here that I think are solid tracks that are not highlights for me. And that's particularly in the back end of the album, which I think is a great run. there's just not everything is like a highlight. I'm just like, it was a very solid track.
Okay.
But obviously at the start, Who Ride With Us.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that is like, that's kind of like the bounce that I'm going for.
Yeah.
I Call Shots is a good song, but that's not
too.
like, there aren't too many other songs on the album that kind of have that tone, and there's no run of tracks like that, except maybe at the very, very end.
Yeah.
So for me, like the album really kind of starts with like Who Ride With Us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The Loose Cannon, I mean, it's fine. Like I like concept tracks like that.
Yeah.
This didn't land. This didn't execute as well as it needed to. So it's not a low light, but it's just kind of like, eh.
Yeah,
so
it's a mid light for me too.
So for me, like Who Ride With Us, I think that's badass on the hook. And just like the energy that we get from Daz.
I thought it was Daz on the. It's badass?
I think it's badass.
Oh, wow.
Maybe. I could be mistaken. Hold on, let me see here.
R.I.P. Badass, man. It's the homie.
Yeah, I think that's badass on the hook.
Okay. Dope.
And but like, you know, the chemistry that Daz and Kurupt have is like, man, I have underrated them as a duo. They're like up there. Like if you want to talk about like Ray and Ghost, if you want to talk about like Dre and Big Boy or Bun B and Pimp C, like, or, you know, even Q-Tip and Phife, like Kurupt and Daz belong in that conversation. They're a really, really, really good duo.
Absolutely.
So so to hear them on that beat with that bounce, and that's Fred Wreck giving it to us, you know what I mean? Like that's dope. That's a highlight for me.
That's what's up. Same. I said this might be the most West Coast sounding record on here.
Yeah.
Daz and Kurupt staple. Like if you like this world, if you're a DPG, Daz and Kurupt fan, this is exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And it also features my favorite skit on the whole album.
That's at the end of it, right?
End of it.
With the radio.
Yeah.
And basically calling DMX
trash. Well, first it starts with the dude who's supposed to be the slow jams guy.
I love slow jams, but I love that gangster shit too.
Where's my Kurupt CD? And then they switch. He's like, hey, hand me one of them OE cut. And then he switches to this what's supposed to be a DMX song.
That's my man's in them.
And he has an actual DMX bar, which is well, first he says, if I bleed, that's my blood. And who I am is who I be until I die. That's who I was. And then he goes, you looking for some niggas running? That's my man's in him. And which DMX actually says on the first album. And then he goes, if you're looking for the TV, God damn it, I smoked the TV. And which is actually a callback to on Foxy Brown's album China Doll, which came out the year prior. She has this skit for a song. She has a song called J.O.B. where she redoes, you gotta have a J.O.B. if you want to be with me. And the skit at the beginning, she's got this dude who's like a deadbeat and he's like staying on her couch. And she comes home and she's like, where's my TV? And he's like, I'm sorry, baby, I smoked the TV. So it's like a callback to DMX and Foxy, being together or whatever by him saying that DMX was the guy who smoked the TV.
That's hilarious.
So love that skit. That's my favorite skit on the whole project.
There aren't too many skits on the project though.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. There's a few.
Yeah. Next highlight is Represent That GC.
Represent That GC.
This is my this is my highlight of highlights. It's my favorite track on the album. I fucking love this shit. I love the beats. I love the energy. You got Snoop delivering on the feature.
Yeah.
This is like your posse cut, right?
Yeah.
This is I mean, like this is I think this is the only song that like I just like kept on repeat. I cannot not bounce to this song. I have to bounce to it. This shit is so dope.
It's a bounce for sure. And I feel like anything in the Dog Pound world where it starts with this radio announcer shit is gonna be fire. And he's like, Enema. I'm saying it, baby. Back, write down your colon hole with another blah 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 blah. Yo, like I just love this shit.
So that's my highlight of highlights.
Yeah.
The next one for me is Trilogy.
Okay.
We get Bink doing something like this. So the reason why this is a highlight
doing
for me,
Bink things.
We got Bink doing Bink things. This is also that era of hip hop in which like producers discovered that you can sample classical records because they're part of the public domain.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, it's a classical record. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and sample this shit.
Right.
And this is him sampling a classical record.
Right.
And you have Kurupt giving us bars.
Yeah.
You have Kurupt doing his like, nah, like I'm a MC first, I'm a spitter first, I'm gonna just spit on some shit. Whatever, like it just is what it is, like, and it's great for that. Is it cohesive with the rest of the project? Not necessarily. Do I care? I don't.
Yeah,
it's great. So it's a highlight for me.
I also like where it sits in the album because it's kind of right in the middle. And, I try to do the whole 2 acts thing. So I do agree that it doesn't necessarily fit, but it's, I feel like it's same with kind of Call Shots. Like Kurupt likes these like violin string arrangements where he's just spitting. Like that's like just a thing for him. And I think this is one of the better ones. The funny thing about this song is I didn't know if you were it was gonna land for you.
Why is that?
And the reason I didn't know how it was gonna land for you is that it sounds like at the beginning of the record, he starts trying to tell this story, like this heist story about how he runs up in this stash spot and he kicks in the door and he's doing all this stuff. And then at some point, it's like just not a story anymore. And he's just talking about how he's just a gangster and he's tough and whatever. And so you being a stickler for stories, I wondered if it was going to be something that you thought more critically of.
It didn't. Well, what I will say is that it didn't really feel like a story to me. Sometimes when I'm listening to an album for the first time, I don't know. It takes a while for me to realize, he's telling a story, right? I never really got that, so I just didn't associate it.
Because he starts with like, surround the whole parameter. Some. He's like telling you this whole shit about how he's staking out the spot and he's about to come through and he kicks in the door and the dogs are running and all this other stuff. But then he ends the story with like, and I'm a dog. DPG's my set. I don't give a fuck. And it's like, wait, was it a story or did you not give a fuck? But I love how it sounds. I love Bink, and this is quintessential Kurupt, so I love this song.
My next highlight is Never Gonna Give It Up.
Okay.
I like the beats. I love that. I love that. I think that
that's such a Meech Wells. Is
that what it is?
Yeah, thing.
Yeah, he's the producer around here.
Yeah, he's dope.
When Nate Dogg delivers, because that's what Nate Dogg does.
Yeah.
And this is a very well mixed song as well, right? Okay. And so it's got that kind of energy that I want. It's got a good bounce, got a good little bob to it. I'm here for it. So this is one of my highlights.
It's interesting. I call this a highlight just because it's like a true, Carlos endorsed DPGC posse cut. Like everybody here is part of like this Dog Pound clique.
That makes sense.
But I found myself getting a little bored on their verses on the joint. So like I love the beat. Warren G's verse kind of bored me. Nate was great, but Nate is always great. You know what I'm saying? So I like the song though, and I like what it's about.
Okay. My next highlight is going to be an interesting one. Your Girlfriend.
Really?
The reason why this is a highlight for me has everything to do with the fact that first year after we did These Nuts, we made a song called Nut Nut Skeet Skeet. Okay. And it had like an intro to it. And I'm not going to sing the intro, but it was like, I don't know why these hoes are sucking toes when they know. They should be on their knees, sucking knees, nut, nut, ski, ski. Like the way that we sung that though is the same way that they sing like the hook for Your Girlfriend. Okay. And because of that, like I'm listening to the song with a smile on my face. Like, cause it just kind of brings me back to a moment when we recorded something that no one really heard. Like, I think we recorded the track. It was to the beat of it was the Fabulous Holla Back. Okay. We did it to that. But like no one really heard this song, but nevertheless, I still remember that moment. And so like hearing this Girlfriend song just kind of reminded me of that. And like it's not a bad song, so I was like, it's just a highlight for me.
I hate this song. It's a low light. I think this is like the ultimate sophomore misogyny on here.
Probably.
I like the beat, but I can't listen to the song. I feel like one of the things that I hate the most about this song is that like, so the whole shit's about how like your girlfriend's a hoe, and we hate her because she's a hoe, and we all smashed her, and she's nasty, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, then they proceed to tell us about how your girlfriend has all these STDs because she's such a hoe. But then they tell us that they all slept with her. So it's like, okay, so what you're saying is like this woman is disgusting, and she has all these STDs, and she does all this terrible stuff.
All slept with her.
But you have such low standards for yourself. That you still decided to have sex with this woman despite all of these things.
Yinka and I kind of like switch roles here, because that's how I would break something down like this and talk about like logically this doesn't make any sense
at all.
I think you're absolutely right. It's definitely a sophomore song, and there's a lot of sophomore songs on this album.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm listening to a Kurupt album from 1999, West Coast rap, LA. I'm expecting that. I'm expecting that.
I mean, if anything in the Kurupt and Daz canon is gonna be sophomoric misogyny. That's their thing.
My next highlight is Ho's a Housewife.
Okay.
And I don't think this was a highlight for me when we talked about 2001.
Me neither.
But for whatever reason, like on this album, it works way better.
Okay.
It just works way better for me. And I think that like I actually like appreciated the lyrics more this time around than I did than listening to 2001. Okay. And I know what they're talking about, right? Like, but still, like lyrically, I don't know. This album this song just kind of like works for me. Yeah.
I kind of agree with you there. And I think similar to you, this was not a highlight for me on 2001. And I don't know if this tells me that 2001 is way better than this, or if it just fits better here. I don't know. But what it does tell me is that I miss Hitman. And I think that Hitman was really, really dope on this and on the whole 2001 project.
Yeah.
And I wish that he worked with Dr. Dre more because he was just such a great talent.
Hitman is one of my highlights for this song. I think the issue, though, is that like the 2001, like when we talked about that, I talked about how like the whole like first 10 tracks of that, like the first, like if there's a side A to the album, right? The side A to that album is so big and so cinematic.
Yeah.
The side B is probably more of like the LA centric, if you will.
Okay.
And that's where this song lands on that album. Where this song lands on this album, it's still on the back half, but like the whole thing, it just feels like it makes more sense for me, for someone who is like recognizing that this is just an LA centric album.
Okay.
It just makes more sense for me here. And Hitman is great.
Yeah.
Rodney has some thoughts as well, which I'd like to share.
Okay.
From a production standpoint, Dr. Dre's Ho's a Housewife is the best song on the album. Dre knows how to get the best out of the artists he works with. Daz and Superfly both make great beats as well, but the artist may not always shine, which dampens great lyricism. I'm not sure if I agree with him about it being the best song of the album. It's not my favorite song of the album, but I do think that he brings up a good point. Or he brings up a good point worth discussing about, does Dre bring the best out of artists versus someone like Superfly or even Daz? I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that because I think that Daz brings a lot out of the artists as well, and you know more about Superfly than I do. But nevertheless, that was a point that
I think he might be right in that, Dre is one of the few people that will make you say the same word 100 times before he gets the right take, right? And nobody else is gonna do that, right? Daz, especially if you're working with somebody like Kurupt, you can tell that this nigga's just freestyling on half of these songs, at least. So, it's like he probably just goes in and just raps some shit. Dr. Dre's probably like, nah, go back and do it again. Nah, go back and do it again. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So that's probably what he's saying.
My next highlight is I Ain't Shit Without My Homeboys.
Y'all don't see me, I'm throwing my dubs up,
Even though I think this beat kind of sounds like it was made on like the keyboard sounds kind of like elementary to me.
Okay.
Nevertheless, I think the sentiment of this song, like it's good for us to get a song with this. You have Crooked I on here. I think he shines. It's a good song.
Yeah.
It's a good song.
I love this song. Those keyboards that you're talking about are probably played by Priest, also known as Superfly.
Okay.
Superfly and Daz working together. This is the most Superfly and Daz beat ever to me, and I love it because I love their shit.
Yeah.
This is everybody on here comes off. I love Baby S. Baby S was also on We Can Freak It. So you probably know his voice from there. I think he has one of the dopest rap voices ever. Rest in peace, Baby S. He's from Hawthorne, so my boy Day One is one of his boys.
Okay.
But man, he's like a legend. And Crooked I, this is one of the first Crooked I verses I ever heard, and he's dope on here. Superfly is dope on here. It's just like, it's a posse cut that's about being a posse cut.
That's fair. But yeah, it's just it's a really good song, really good song placement too.
Yeah.
My next highlight is Live on the Mic featuring KRS-One.
Okay.
And I love this because, first of all, I'm not sure if it's weird. This one to me fits more than like I Call Shots.
Okay.
Right? Like this actually sounds like it could belong on the album.
Oh, you mean
even more so
production
than
wise?
What?
You mean production wise?
Production wise.
Okay.
Even more so than Trilogy. Like Trilogy or Trilogy, whatever it is, doesn't really sound like it fits on here.
Right.
This one actually does.
Okay.
Right? Because I think Superfly produces this, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I love that you got KRS-One on here. They're both clearly freestyling.
Right.
I love that neither one really outshines the other. Like KRS-One starts off really strong and Kurupt is just kind of like saying whatever. Then by the end, like Chris is doing his own bye, and Kurupt is killing it. So I love that like there's like a balance there, there's a respect there.
Yeah.
I love it when like you have like one of the, the teacher, the philosopher, someone who considers himself an arbiter of hip hop. Comes out to LA and be like, no, like Kurupt deserves a cosign.
Right.
Not that Kurupt needs KRS's cosign, but let's be real here. Like this is like late 90s. KRS-One is still considered one of the GOATs.
Right.
Even regardless of whether or not like you agree with that now. At the time, he's still considered one of the GOATs.
Right.
And he's like, no, you're gonna respect my man Kurupt.
Yeah.
I fuck with it. It's it's a highlight for me.
Completely agree. I mean, we talked about Genius earlier by the Kanye documentary.
Yeah.
And for me, just seeing people live their dreams is something that I love.
Yeah.
And both Snoop and Kurupt have talked about how KRS-One is like their hero. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, they love him. So
I didn't know Snoop felt that way.
Yeah. He even did "Love's Gonna Get You" over again, a song called "Dog's Gonna Get You" on one of his albums. So yeah, they both love KRS. Like that's their guy.
Yeah.
So to watch Kurupt, somebody who this is his hero, and then he gets to freestyle with his hero and record it as a song, I think is just amazing. And one of the little nuggets that I've never heard, but I read somewhere, is that you can hear Foxy Brown laughing in the background while at certain punchlines and stuff while they're freestyling, which was cool if it's true. I never heard it.
Okay. My last highlight is calling out names.
Sup, Fred?
I like the beat.
Yeah.
That's a Fred Wreck beat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the beat, and I like that. Like, I respect the fact that he's like actually calling out names.
Yeah.
I think Rodney said this is one of like a top 10 diss track. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but nevertheless, like it's fine. Like I don't, but this is just it's dope. Like I'm here for the drama.
Yeah, I feel like, and that's what I will say too. Right, this drama. I feel like, other than like Hit 'Em Up and a few other, kind of specific examples, there were not a lot of hip hop songs that like called people out by names.
Yeah.
Like most of the disses were more subliminal.
Yeah.
And so like this being one where like he's literally calling out names, I think gave this a lot of drama. That people were like, oh shit, But at the same time, on the other hand of it, I also think it's kind of some bitch shit a little bit.
Okay.
And one of the things that I don't like when you make your fight somebody else's fight. And so you hear a lot on this record like, yeah, the West Coast, we gonna ride on you, we gonna this. It's like you have a specific beef with an individual.
Yeah.
This isn't about the West Coast. This isn't, don't step off a plane, we gonna blah, 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 all these people. No, you have a problem with a specific person. And so, he does do a lot of like, West Coast posturing, which annoys me a little bit. But, he did have an issue with DMX, and, he felt like DMX and Foxy had something going on. Wasn't cool with it. He called it out. And yeah, I like the song too. It's a highlight.
There are a couple other songs I just want to mention. They're not highlights for me, but I think that they're all very good songs.
Yo, before we move on, I'm sorry, off that song, the fact that he says "fuck Belly" has always made me laugh. Me and Kenny used to always say, "Yo, fuck DMX, fuck Rough Rider, fuck Belly." It's like the movie. Yo, I love that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So there's a few other songs that I want to mention. Just they're not necessarily highlights for me, but I respect these songs. I think they're very, very solid songs, and they're in a good run, which is tracks 9 through 11. The Streetz Iz A Mutha, You Can't Trust Nobody, and It Ain't About You. Yeah. I think that like I didn't highlight them, but like I respect it. Like they're very solid songs.
Yeah, they're on my highlights as well. So I'll give my highlights that we missed.
So tell me what you missed.
So
tell me what I missed.
Yeah, I call Shots as a highlight for me.
I figured it would be.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just this is like what you're asking for from Kurupt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like it's not really about shit. He's got string sample, organized noise, which was a weird choice to me. Like the couple records that Organized Noise did, I was kind of just surprised because I didn't know where that pairing came from. But cool. I wouldn't put an Organized Noise production as my first song on a Kurupt album by choice, but whatever, it works. It sets the stage. Oh, go ahead.
I think it actually does work for me as a first track because if you go from like, for me, I think the album really starts with Who Ride With Us, right? And so I'd rather have I Call Shots at the beginning so that it doesn't break up this West Coast vibe that I get.
Fair. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, I think he sets the stage, he tells us what he's about, and then he also introduces his little brother.
Yeah,
and I think
Roscoe.
this might be the first time I heard Roscoe, but I became a fan of Roscoe. He would go on to have his own rap career, and and he actually has his own version. I think there's an I Call Shots Part 2, which is just Roscoe. So that's dope.
Rodney talks about that a little bit. He says, although we can hear the Philly influence in Kurupt and his younger brother Roscoe on I Call Shots, the song along with the rest of the album is proof that it's not about where you're from, but where you're at, LA to the core. So yeah, he just wanted to make, special note that
Sure.
I think this is probably like Kurupt trying to put like his brother on a little bit. So
and I mean, if you were familiar with them or around in this time frame, like Roscoe was super young. I mean, he started bringing Roscoe around when he was 15 or 16 years old. And so Roscoe would be around all these grown men spitters and he would be freestyling. Like Roscoe was a dope freestyler and he'd be there just rapping. They'd be like, yo, who is this little kid? You know what I'm saying? He's like 16 years old. He's just killing everything. So it's dope to see Roscoe like at this time frame.
Your next highlight, Welcome Home.
Welcome Home, man. I mean, I talked about it already. This feels like palm trees and warm weather to me. Like I love this record.
I hear that. How big of a record was this in LA?
I don't think it was that big.
It wasn't big.
Okay. It wasn't crazy. They wasn't playing it on the radio or anything like that. Actually, he really put a lot of marketing and money behind Girls All Pause. So that was on the radio a lot and stuff, which I never really loved. And then Who Ride With Us was like the single that wasn't a single. Like everybody from back home fucked with Who Ride With Us.
Okay.
But yeah, love Welcome Home. I love LaToya Williams. I've shouted her out before. She was also on that song All Around the World on Blueprint 2.
Oh, okay.
Same song.
Yeah,
that's her. So I love her voice. She has a really like kind of churchy type of voice.
Okay.
Superfly produced it. So, I love everything Superfly does. Tequila is my ultimate low light. So let me just say like
this
if I have a low light,
album.
I have maybe 2 low lights, but this is a fucking low light. I hate this song. It's not about anything. Timo's on there.
Nivea's on there. She sounds awful.
I don't know why. This is just, please just take this whole song off.
I agree.
We talked about Trilogy already. We talked about Never Gonna Give It Up.
Streetz Iz A Mutha?
No, but I'll tell you why. It's because it's too long. It has like a very slow, maybe it would have worked better on Dog Food. I would have made this like a 1-verse record. And it would have just been like, it could have been the intro to the project or something like that. But like, it's too long and it disrupts the momentum to me.
So the reason why it's not a highlight for me is because I don't think it's mixed very well.
That's true.
I do like the lyrics. I like the vocals. Maybe it is a little too long, but like, this is such like an iconic Isaac Hayes sample.
Right.
To not do it justice, like to take something and have like the standard version, like not do something else with it. To just kind of have like a standard loop with it. And then to not mix it well, it's kind of like, guys, like you're better than this. You know what I mean? So it should have been a highlight because, like I said, I like the lyrics.
Agreed.
I do like the sample. I just don't like how they executed it.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not a highlight for me. But it's a solid track, and and it doesn't disrupt my run. Like I had no problems going for. I had no problems going from never gonna give it up to the Streetz Iz A Mutha to You Can't Trust Nobody. Like it never felt stunted to me.
Yeah, this is a run for me. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right?
Okay.
So You Can't Trust Nobody, I love.
Yeah.
I love my bills gotta get paid. I'm out of here, biatch. Catch me next week. Skirt. So I love Can't Trust Nobody.
Yeah.
And then It Ain't About You is actually a highlight for me.
I said both of these songs are 2 very solid tracks. That they're not highlights, but I'm like, I feel like if I grew up with this album, they probably would be highlights for me.
Yeah. So It Ain't About You. This is very much soft work misogyny.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go ahead and use one of our listeners term. Superfly is grandfathered in for me as a pimp, right? Like Superfly and Sugar Free get a pass from me. They can say ridiculous shit and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So It Ain't About You is the most Superfly song ever on here. In fact, if it's not on that Whoop De Whoop, it should be on that Whoop De Whoop, the Superfly album. This is a Superfly song that just happens to have Kurupt and these other niggas on it.
Okay.
So I love Superfly. I think I would probably just make it Superfly and Trady's verses. Kurupt's verse is whack to me. This might be Trey D's best verse. Like this is one of his best verses.
Okay.
So I really like that, and I like Trey D. I like his voice.
Okay.
Girls All Pause is light to me. I never really liked this song.
It's not a low light, but I don't think it's. Yeah, it doesn't do anything for me. I understand why, like, it sounds like it's a hit in 1999. Like, I get it. You got Bink on the beat. You got Nate Dogg, obviously.
Exactly.
Oh, pause. But like, man.
Yeah, and it's like they're interpolating like a climax record, right? The Men All Pause.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like a old school joint. But I mean, yeah, it just didn't do it for me. I thought it was silly. I love Nate. Nate always sounds good to me. So it's not about that. It's just a silly song to me.
Gotcha.
And then what else I got? I got Ain't Shit Without My Homeboys. I got Step Up, and I got Live on the Mic.
So talk about Step Up, because that's not a highlight for me.
Okay. So yeah, one thing I want to say about Step Up, if I remember correctly, because I definitely had this CD, I think Step Up is produced by DJ Battlecat. And I feel like it's credited on Wikipedia as produced by Daz Dillinger.
Okay.
And I could be wrong, so definitely let us know in the comments, y'all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is actually produced by Battlecat.
Okay.
But yeah, man, this is the stuff that I, as a young budding MC, this is what I was coming to Kurupt for, right? This is lyrical, miracle, spiritual. Dudes being super lyrical over a fairly simplistic beat. This is Crooked Eye just absolutely murders this bitch to a point where it's just like this is Kurupt at his best. This is Exhibit at his best, but Crooked Eye is just above and beyond.
I think this is a song that I would have needed to grow with, because I don't really like it musically.
Yeah.
So I would have had to like really sit with this album and just kind of let it play and let like just kind of absorb the music so I can really appreciate the lyrics, because I don't like this beat.
This is the art of manslaughter. When I'm rocking, I'm more shocking than dropping the boombox in bathwater. Deliver the sick verbals. My shotty spin around before you spin around. Your body hit the ground or something. He just was killing. Like Crooked Eye's verse on this shit is one of the most amazing verses on this album by far. And I love how he comes off, and then Kurupt, and then Exhibit. And the other thing that I love is Battlecat on the scratch.
Okay.
Because I think every once in a while we forget that this nigga's a DJ too, right? And so like at the end, he's just killing the transform scratches and everything. And I'm like, okay, yeah, Battlecat, that's what's up.
Okay. So we kind of touched on our lowlights, which was just Tequila. We don't need to rehash that, but
I think I had another low light.
Did you?
What was my other low light?
Well, it would have been Loose Cannon. That's the only other song we didn't really talk about.
Loose Cannon is a meta light to me. I get what they tried to do, like with the whole like, oh, let's sample NWA and Eazy-E and Your Girlfriend is my other low.
Oh yeah. So
anyway,
okay. Well, yeah, I'm really glad that we got to listen to this. I think in terms of Put You Ups, this is probably one of the better ones for me. Just in terms of like, I can really see a situation where like if I grew up in LA, like I would love this record. Like I could just see it.
Yeah.
Everybody is talking about 2001, but like, nah, like that Kurupt Streetz Iz A Mutha. Like I get it. I get it. You know what I mean? And even some of the things that weren't necessarily for me, I can still kind of like appreciate and respect. Like I said, it's not entirely cohesive, but it also probably doesn't need to be. You know what I mean? Like Dr. Dre made sure that his albums were very cohesive.
Right.
You know what I mean? You talk about like Chronic, you talk about Doggy Style, you talk about 2001. Like it's like, nah, like it has to be this way.
Right.
Kurupt's probably not thinking that way. Daz probably isn't thinking that way either. But nevertheless, like despite that, like it still delivers. And so, if I can get past the fact that like Trilogy and Loose Cannon probably don't really belong on this record, it's fine. It's whatever. It's Kurupt. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Kurupt showed us later in his career and earlier in his career that he might not be the greatest executive producer. And I think this is very well done despite that,
Yeah. So I think, Daz is probably considered the executive producer on here. So
is he?
Yeah, I think so. It looks like it. It says also exec.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because
tell.
This does sound like it could be like a dog pound record. And apparently
dog food too.
They're coming back out.
Supposedly they are doing a dog food too. I don't know what to expect there, and so I'm not highly anticipating it, but you know.
Well, I'm more curious about like what Daz is doing because like I said, I think that he's a very underrated musician. At least I'm realizing just how well he knows music.
Well, we've got a Daz album that I actually wanted to do, so maybe
Which
we can
one is
do
that?
one. So Gangsta.
When did that come out?
2005, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We can do that. Do you have anything else to add?
Actually, it might have come out in 07, 06, something like that. 06.
Okay.
I don't have anything to add, man. Glad that we covered this album. I think this is a really underrated album for what it is. I think, one of your favorites, Fonte Coleman from Little Brother, had mentioned on one of the maybe the Questlove podcast that this is either one of his favorite albums or in his mind one of the most underrated albums. So I think
I can see that.
This is an album that I think it's like a if you know type album.
No, I feel that because look, I don't remember this album getting any kind of national recognition.
Yeah.
Right? But like if you know, and I'm listening to this album, I'm like, oh no, like this shit is dope.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Anyway, I think that'll wrap up for our Put You Up episode for Kurupt, The Streetz Iz A Mutha.
Yeah, peace.
I'm saying it, baby. I just said it low. In your motherfucking ass. Oh, okay, like this. We gonna clean it up like this, punk bitch.
Man, what a bitch. Gangsta shit. Full scrape up the cement and bend. I never loved me a hoe. Just to remind y'all bitches, in case you didn't know. I break fool on niggas, way cool on niggas. Fuck all y'all niggas, sawed off y'all niggas, and I'm quick to pull out. Gangsta shit, tell a bitch to stick a dick in her mouth.
Had to skip to my Lucy, walking G, talking. I'm against the cold-hearted, sick, dumb, and retarded. Came up this far without a bulletproof vest.
Yeah.
Ran with the best, work back as a guest. Always stay fresh, won't settle for less. Looped out, satin out.
Man, these niggas on deck. Now it's the pimp of the crew, super fly coming through. I got a dick and a couple balls, just to name a few. The DP, loped out, niggas get choked out, smoked out, niggas that'll fuck you up, no doubt.
Gangsta, tell me how you do it. It seems so simple, like there was nothing to it. Ripping, sipping, dipping on the fluid. West Coast nigga, yeah, we be the truest.